Look guys, an opinion! Opinions! The one human trait that no one can escape because, well, if we didn't have opinions, then, like, why would I need this?
And there is one creature on this planet that knows all about these so-called opinions, and it is, of course, the glorious Railfanner. Fueled by years of seeing, being told about, or liking a thing, they will go to any extent to defend what they like, no matter the cost.
So let's look into a few examples of conflicting opinions people have in this community, because I'm all dry out of ideas.
Yes, the two most common things rail is used for. Moving freight and moving people. Naturally meaning, when it comes to Railfan, people will tend to have a preference on what they want to film.
I personally like passenger over freight. It probably has to do with me being a San Diego resident, because only up until recently, freight trains were a 3 times a week occurrence at around, 12 a.m.
But from what I've seen, there are a lot of people who prefer freight. And a good reason for this would probably be because most people don't live near frequently running passenger rail here in the US. But if you live near tracks, freights almost certainly do or have ran on those tracks.
Freight Railfanners have always kind of confused me, mainly on how they can tell this and that apart. The amount of times I've said a GP38 was an SD40-2 and vice versa is insane, and the amount of times there goes 14% of my viewers.
Let's play a game for all those non-freight Railfanners watching this video. Which one is the ES44AC and which one is the ES44C4? They're both ES44DCs.
Now, of course, we passenger rail fans have our weird things too. I've seen people get confused on how we can find joy in the same things over and over again with the same power and rolling stock that you could find basically anywhere else. What was that about the same rolling stock over and over again?
Okay, yeah, I know what's meant by this, and really, the good part for passenger rail fanning is enjoying everything you can about the set you're looking at. For me, the loco, the coaches, the usually matching paint scheme, the horn, the crews, it all just comes together and makes something that, for me personally, I just can't get with freight. Not to mention, if you have a favorite loco that isn't a heritage unit for freight, if it's a class 1 and it isn't restricted to a yard or specific areas, you better be waving that thing goodbye as soon as it passes you, because you will not be seeing that thing again for a long while. With passenger, as long as your favorite loco is in a P42 or an ALC, chances are you'll get to see your favorite loco a good 3 times per week on the average. In terms of operations, I like how passenger organizations have to work towards better and more frequent service because it means more trains for me. And Class 1 freight railroads, as we all know, are trying to cut down on the amount of trains they have and the crews for those trains, with them instead opting for massive trains with like 2 people to manage it.
Here's another common topic of disagreement among rail fans. Which is better, the rolling stock of old or the rolling stock of the modern day?
As many of you viewers probably know, railroading looks a lot different than it did just 10 years ago. Back then it was a lot of EMD, GE, Bombardier, and some Alstom here and there. And now it's Siemens, Alstom, the F125, and oh, did I mention Siemens?
Most people prefer the old for one reason or another. However, I am not most people.
I will admit, I like all the new stuff. It's mainly because I never had any form of attachment to the old stuff, and because this new stuff is an indication that we're getting closer to having to deal with less of this.
Now, of course, I can't deny that the F-59s, P-42s, and F-40s of the old times were awesome, but I always thought that the Chargers and the F-125s were a bit more hated than they should have been.
While yes, the Caltrans and Midwest Chargers are absolute garbage operations-wise, the rest of the Chargers, in my opinion, are actually pretty good from a railfan's perspective and operations-wise. Now, me saying that has already got me on a few hit lists, but I don't know, I'm used to it by now.
I've already talked about this old versus new debate several times, so let's move on to the next topic of the video. And now we come to yet another pretty big topic of debate in the railfan community. What do you actually like about the trains you film?
I personally enjoy getting a cool shot of the train, the paint scheme, meeting the crews, and of course, horn shows. However, of course other people have different opinions on what they like. One person will only be in it for seeing rare power and not to get horn stuff, while someone else may be only here for the horns and only kinda care about the rare stuff.
Now will people act like you not having their same opinion is worthy of being burned at the stake for? Pfft. Of course! This is the railfan community. In what world would people act like opinions aren't facts? Will you be here all week?
In the railfan community, the most common interest seems to be special power and horns, which is understandable. I mean, like, those are probably some of the most notable things you can find on a train past just the fact that it's a train. Now, as I mentioned, your interests as a railfan have a high likelihood of you getting hate in the future, but, you know, that's kind of written in the contract for becoming a railfan at this point.
In the end, we're all people, and people have different opinions. While yes, one person may think differently than another person, we can all agree that everyone in this community is united under one standard factor, and that is we all like trains in some way, shape, or form.
It's okay if you like horn shows more than heritage units, or if you like the old more than the new, cause that's your opinion. And as a wise man once said, you do you, I'll do me, and we won't do each other, probably. Unless you're hating on 2113, then you can expect a nice surprise in your mailbox tomorrow.